Welcome to the SRS Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron J. Babiar, and I'm the Training Director of Support Raising Solutions. Whether you're a new ministry worker or a veteran looking to increase your competence and confidence, Support Raising Solutions seeks to bless you in your quest to be a spiritually healthy, vision-driven, fully funded Great Commission worker. Our guest today is Charles Wesley. And Charles, I've had an opportunity to get to know you now and again at different support raising conferences, and I've just always enjoyed our time together. But first of all, let me just say welcome, my friend.
Thank you. I really appreciate the invitation to be here, and happy to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump into our topic today. I know that you're in Maryland right now. I know you're involved with campus ministry, but I know there's a lot more to you, and not just what you do, but who you are, than that kind of stuff. So unpack that first, if you would, before we get going too far.
Certainly. I'm 28 years old, and actually I've been married just under 2 years, so that's an exciting thing. And even more exciting is that we're expecting my wife and I, Chelsea, are expecting our first child at the end of July. So that's
awesome.
a very big thing that's coming up in my life. That's very much my identity is becoming and wrapping my mind about becoming a father. So that's an exciting thing that's going on. But I originally am from Michigan. I serve in Maryland, but I'm originally from Michigan. I love the state of Michigan.
Cool. No, wait a minute. Go Sparty or go Blue?
Oh, good question. I am a Spartan through and through.
Oh, we just lost at least half of our listeners. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, no.
No, I'm kidding. Okay, I'm sorry. Carry on.
So I didn't attend Michigan State, funny enough. I went to a school called Grand Valley State University, and got a degree in marketing and management. I love the business side of the world, and feel like the Lord has actually called me to kind of bring that into the ministry, kind of a business mindset into the ministry, and I really enjoy that aspect in that area. But I love people. I love getting to know people and spending time with people, which is also why I think the Lord has called me into college ministries, just to love on students and get to know and establish relationships and friendships. So that's a big part of who I am as well. I'm a big sports guy. I watch a lot of any sports. My favorite are basketball and golf. So you'll find me a lot of time watching those things on a Saturday or Sunday, relaxing.
Yeah. Well, I think you could teach me a lot about golf, but I watch basketball with you all day. That's for sure. So, and play. I want to play too, but the older I get, the better I was, not am. But you're about to experience that since you're pushing 30. So
that's right.
Yeah. Well, I know that you are not just someone who has raised your full support, but you have helped others in raising their support. And I know that you've facilitated some in-house boot camps with your organization. But tell us a little bit about your experience and what you learned in your process of not just raising support, but maintaining that support, because that's a little bit of our topic today, just to kind of dig into that side of things of what do you do once you're fully funded?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe some background would be helpful. So
yes, please.
I'm in my 6th year of staff work for UCO. I started in the fall of 2013, and I actually started part-time as a part-time paid worker for UCO, and I was doing some marketing part-time on the side. And I did that until the summer of 2017, when the Lord really called me to go into full-time mission work with UCO. And so I quit my part-time marketing job and went full-time into UCO. So the summer before I went full-time, which was the summer 2017. So in 2016, my organization had made the shift to ask all of our missionaries to be fully funded, to raise their support. And as my position is supervising staff at the chapter that I'm at, which is the University of Maryland, and I was asked to read the God Ask to understand what my staff were going through, and to understand and help supervise them through the process. And after reading that book, I just got convicted, absolutely convicted, that this was the way to do full-time mission work, was to raise a support team. And I think that was kind of the Lord speaking into my life, drawing me to full-time mission. And so I went full-time in 2017, and I've been living off of support since then. And one of the things that is constantly on my mind is, as I believe the Lord's called me into this mission field long-term, is maintaining the support. Right. And I think it's one of the more crucial things, not only in my own fundraising and my support raising, but also for every missionary, not only in UCO, but just who's doing mission work, who's called into Great Commission work. And it's something that I've been wrestling with. How do I do this well? How do we as an organization do this well? I think our organization has some ground to make. I think I personally have some ground to make. But it is, especially as someone who's invested so much in relationships and value relationships, I want to make sure that I have a relationship with my donors and they feel valued, and that brings forth fruit in our mission, but also keeps me fully funded.
Yeah, it does, because when they feel like there's a connection, there's a real partnership, and it's not just this automatic draft that comes out of their account to some campus ministry, something or other, but it has more density to a relationship that makes a big difference. But let me ask you, because I know that unfortunately one of the best ways I learn is by really messing things up and making mistakes and falling down and having to learn how to get up and walk again. This was an area that I talked about, I'm sure, before on the podcast, but this was an area that I really got wrong early on in my support raising experience. So from a standpoint of me kind of asking you as the growing expert in this topic, what did you get wrong, especially in your earlier days of not just raising support, but living off support? Or what were some of the mistakes that you made or things that you learned from by getting wrong the first time around?
Sure, or maybe continue to get wrong and striving to get right.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we talk about a lot of times not viewing our donors as a bank with a transactional kind of experience. And I think despite my best efforts, that is, for a lot of my donors, that's what happens. I have a reality of I work and do my mission work in Maryland, but I'm from Michigan, and so a lot of my support comes from Michigan. And I have a bunch of other people in various other states, and so I don't have the luxury of being able to invite someone over to dinner that's on my support team necessarily, or seeing them, about on the town. So I think one of my biggest failings has been finding creative outlets to facilitate a relationship or something that isn't necessarily seeing them face to face, especially early on, that first year and a half. Just kind of relying on the newsletter to facilitate that relationship, which I don't think is the best way. It's a way, but I don't think it's the best way, and it can still come off as not great, particularly if you don't send the newsletter as often as you should.
Right. And I'll just affirm what you said there too, because I understand people like, hey, I put effort, like I poured my heart into that newsletter. Like I really tried to share like real things, and that's good. That's not bad. In fact, we hope people do that. And yet a newsletter's primary function is to communicate about the vision, what's been done, what's going on, what you're moving towards, prayer requests, that kind of stuff. But as much as you might intend to talk about, yourself and just let people get to know you a little bit better, maybe with like 20% of your newsletter, that's still not relationship, is it?
That's right. And the longer I've been in this, the more I've been convicted of that, not only for my own support team, but for all of my staff, all the staff in UCO, and for everyone in Great Commission work.
Hey, I just want to take a few seconds to mention something. Outside of the Bible, the book I most frequently recommend to Great Commission-focused leaders is The God Ask by Steve Shadrach. I'm humbled to say that Steve is a friend of mine who actually helped pioneer support-raising solutions. And if you haven't read his book, you're missing out. Instead of going into a support-raising appointment fearing what people might say, you can have confidence that God is superintending the whole process. This book will help you embrace the fact that biblical support raising is not a man ask. No, it's actually a God ask. And it's available at cmmpress.org, where you can receive a 10% discount if you use the code SRS Podcast.
Okay, so as you've learned to kind of lean into that, so to speak, what are some practical things that you've realized, changes you've made, changes you're wanting to change? Go ahead and keep digging into that, because I think you're really on to something here.
Yeah. So I think, some of the things that I've implemented have come from other people, being at SRS boot camps and kind of learning from other people and talking about this very subject in this very area. And one of the things that I feel very good about, I feel like I've moved the ball forward, made ground at, is an idea of what I call a daily prayer journal. And so at the beginning of this academic year, after I got fully funded for this year, I bought a little 3x5 notebook. And in that notebook, I wrote down the names of each and every one of my supporters.
Okay.
And then I would take that notebook out during my personal prayer time every morning and pray specifically for 3 names as I went down the list.
Right.
And then after my prayer time, I would actually send a text to those 3 names saying something along the lines of, "Hey, person X, I was praying for you this morning. I want to thank you for your support of UCO and wanted to know if there's any specific intentions that I could be praying for."
Okay.
And sometimes I'd get a response back and sometimes not. But if I got a response, I'd write their intention right next to their name. And I'd go through my entire notebook, and then I'd circle back and continue to pray through those intentions. And
right.
I'd follow up sometimes. Hey, was praying for you again and wanted to know, how did that thing go? Was lifting that up. What's kind of the update?
Right. So it wasn't just a one-off necessarily that you sent a note or a text or whatever else, but when you tried to communicate with them again later on, you paid attention to what their response was from the time before. You'd actually been praying about it. You're like, yeah, hey, how is your son's leg? Or it wasn't just a, hey, do you have anything else I can pray about? But you circled back to the thing you had already been praying about, because, well, A, hopefully that's true, because we don't want you doing that if it's not. But B, it shows that you care. It shows that you weren't just flippantly throwing out and Jesus, I pray for John Doe, amen. But there was more of an intentionality about caring about them and what they are caring for. So I think that's fantastic. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Please continue.
No, that's fine. Yeah, exactly. And I think I've been doing this for a couple of months now, and I think something that I see in my own pattern is following up quicker. I think there was lots of times where there was too much time in between my follow-up text. But overall, what I found is that by actually taking a step in like enacting this in my support raising, I have found that I absolutely love the opportunity to be a partner in their life.
Yes.
I just get a sense of joy when someone actually texts me back and says, "Thanks for the prayers. here's something that's going on in my life that I would like prayer for. And it really, when it's happened, it's really facilitated that relational kind of experience as opposed to transactional. And it really brings me joy, and to be able, because there's something about they're letting me into their life. They're letting me suffer with them, pray with them, experience joy with them if that prayer was answered, and I get to follow up and see that, like, wow, the Lord really did answer that prayer. And so it builds me up in my own discipleship that, hey, the Lord really responds and answers prayers. And it's just been an immense joy.
Last week at the time we're recording this, I just got back from training a boot camp, different state, different city. And because you've trained and facilitated boot camps as well. But there is a point during the SRS boot camp where we talk about this, and everybody kind of listens, but the people that have already raised some support, whether they're doing well with it or whether they've really not done well with it, either way, they're in the room, they're trying to learn more. This is the part of the boot camp where they learn to really pay a lot more attention, because I think that this is a learned skill set. Yeah, there's a heart there that we want people to develop and use, but also there's a learned skill set in maintaining and building relationships with supporters. And part of that too is the reality that it's not a distraction from your quote unquote real ministry. This actually is an important part of your real ministry. And I think that's a maturity point when people move from going, okay, I think that's true, to, oh man, this is totally true, right? Like they're just like, this is something I want to do. It's different from being on campus leading a Bible study with some 19-year-olds, and yet it's not a bad thing to pause and pray for my supporters back in Michigan, or to reach out to them personally and say, hey man, how is your son's leg? I've been praying for that. And that's a maturity issue, I think. I'm not calling anybody that doesn't get that immature, but I've heard from enough veteran leaders like yourself that have said, I had to learn to do this better. I had to learn to stop treating people like just a bank account, but somebody that has cares. And I appreciate what you said about sometimes they share some real things back. In fact, let's not name names, and maybe we shouldn't even get too detailed, but Charles, how about if we both share one or two of the texts that we've gotten back from somebody, even generally, that kind of stopped us in our tracks a little bit. I'll defer to you first.
Sure. Well, I had a situation, it wasn't a text, but it was a situation where I got a kind of an end of the year gift from someone who was on my newsletter mailing, completely out of the blue, and he asked to get coffee. And so I said, absolutely, let's get coffee. He's in Northern Virginia, so not too far away. And I said, hey, thank you so much for the gift, and that meant a lot. And he ended up, through our conversation, sharing about his ministry and what he was doing. And he serves in his local church, specifically doing homeless ministry. And he shared about a very specific intention of a guy who he had met and had a relationship with, who was in some significant problems with the authorities. And who he was just kind of sharing about how his love for this guy and the need for prayer. And I don't want to go into this particular situation for privacy reasons, but I felt so honored that he was asking me to like join him in this intercession over the next couple weeks leading up to a certain point. And I felt honored that he was like, can you bring other people, other prayer warriors that you know, into this intercession? And it was amazing. I mean, I was not expecting this gift. This is a guy, I actually went to UCO. We were part of the same UCO chapter when we were in college together. So it was a way that I really experienced a building of community and a relationship. Like this wasn't necessarily a transaction. It was he felt the Lord put on his heart to give to me.
Mm-hmm.
We met up for coffee just to like catch up, and the Lord kind of said and put in a situation where we can share this together,
Yeah.
as Christians, as disciples, because of our brotherhood together, our friendship, and it just brought me so much joy.
Yeah. Yeah. Because quite honestly, we love to tell people, at least I do. I love to tell people about some cool things going on in ministry, but it's less frequent for people to go, hey, here's something significant in my world, in my daily, that I want you to pray for as well. Like it's an honor when you get to that point in the relationship where they realize, hey, can you pray about this? Because what they're really saying,
Right.
they love you, they trust you, they are seeing you as a partner in ministry, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly how I felt.
Very cool. I mentioned that I was leading a boot camp last week. So right before I was talking about this topic a little bit in the boot camp, I actually got a text from a supporter that I reach out to on occasion just to encourage and say, hey, what's going on that I can be praying for you in your life? And same thing for privacy reasons. I won't get into all the details, but essentially the person shared that his wife had a child as an old teenager, young woman, many, many years ago. And they just recently, I think they've been married for a long time, and it was prior to their marriage. They just recently were able to find her biological son, and
Wow.
he was homeless as best they could tell, and living on the other side of the country. And they were doing what they could. They wanted to connect with him. They wanted to find him. They were struggling with that. Not just the actual work of finding him, but just the heart, the pain, perhaps the grief, perhaps. I mean, there's a lot of emotions that can be in there of, hey, this is our son. This is somebody that we don't know, but we love and we feel responsibility towards. And anyway, they sent me back a message after I said, hey, I am praying for you guys today. I'm leading a boot camp with a bunch of ministry leaders. Please be praying for me, and please be praying for my wife's health. We got some hospital stuff coming up. Like, me sharing real things with them really kind of gave them permission to go, you know what? This dude's praying for us. He's got real stuff going on. Let's tell him about our real stuff. And man, it was as real gets when they sent back that several paragraph text message, and I went, whoa, yes. I will pray for you right now, So anyway, I'm sure you and I could both share more stories. I'll just share one briefly where I had a supporter that called me up and said, I want to meet with you. And I said, yeah, let's schedule something. And his reply was, where are you this afternoon? And I went, whoa, something's up. And I cleared my calendar. And man, there was some very significant things going on in his marriage that were heartbreaking. And I sat and prayed with him and cried with him and loved on him and encouraged him. And I know it wasn't just because of me, but God did bring restoration to that marriage. And I was so honored to be a small piece of that, but it never would have happened if I hadn't legitimately been praying for him and letting him know that, and him feeling like, here's somebody that prays for me. And in a moment of crisis, he said, I got to go sit down with you. So I'm thankful for that. I just want to reemphasize what I said a few minutes ago. I had other stuff to do that day. I had other quote unquote ministry stuff to do that day. Nothing was more important than that day. Even though I quote unquote work with ministry leaders and equip them to survive and thrive and train people to raise support and all that stuff, this wasn't that, but this was more important than that because this was a part of my ministry that day. So
absolutely,
what you're touching on here, Charles, is I think it's a big thing that we need to hear. So I appreciate you bringing it to the table and kind of opening up this can of worms once again, because I don't know that the final word has been said on the ingloriously called donor maintenance. People don't like that term. I don't like that term, but we all know what we mean when we say that, right?
Right. Exactly.
So I'm going to defer back to you. What other thoughts or ideas do you have on this topic? As we're not quite done with our time today, but we're getting close. I definitely want to give you more of more of the mic as we move towards closing.
Sure. Well, I think one of the things in my role as a facilitator and training new staff and coaching old staff on not only fundraising but the aforementioned donor maintenance, if you will, is making it is exactly what you're saying, making it a part of our job. And that doesn't sound great, but I just want to reiterate what you said. I think it's so important. And one of the things that we started doing is in the job descriptions of our mission leaders is saying, actually, part of your job is an hour a week of doing donor maintenance and whatever and how that looks like, whether it's your newsletter or, calling people, getting coffee with people. We want to make this a part of our job such that, hey, it's like in your job description.
Right.
And one of the things that I've done for my staff is we have a weekly staff meeting, and more times than not, we start a staff meeting with a prayer, and we'll end that prayer time with each one of us kind of saying, here's a donor. This is going on in their life. We're going to pray for that donor for a little bit, just as a staff team. And so we kind of take it on as a team. Like, this is important to all of us, not just as an individual, but as a team, because you wouldn't be here if not for this person and your supporters. And I think that's been very, very helpful. It kind of brings a collaborative kind of environment to this. Hey, we are actually being intentional about praying for the people who are supporting us and praying for us.
Yes. What would you suggest to someone, though, that they're not blessed? They're probably blessed to be in ministry, but they're not blessed to be a part of a team that's rolling that out as, hey, do this. This is a part of what you should be doing. Like, there's no supervisors, there's no training, there's no, they might be in a smaller nonprofit, or perhaps they're in a larger ministry that just doesn't put enough value on this. How should they get started? What should they do to kind of grow up and mature in this area?
Yeah, I think I feel like I faced that personally, and just feeling like, okay, I need to take steps to grow in this area, to move the ball forward. And a good friend of mine talks about hitting singles and not going for the grand slam, and doing something that's actually attainable. And so if it's like simply adding 5 minutes at the end of your personal prayer time to pray for one donor a day. It's not even like my work day hasn't even started, but I'm going to do this one thing a day. Something that's a single. It's not a grand slam. It's not, not even like, hey, I'm not even trying to reach out to my donors, but like, I'm going to start a foundation of prayer. And then, hey, once that's in place, okay, what's the next single? How I'm getting to second base. Okay, maybe it's reaching out to the donors, texting the donors, calling the donors that I prayed for that day, and kind of taking an incremental approach. Because I think this is such a overwhelming area. On top of, hey, we got fully supported, fantastic, but your job's not done, and that can be overwhelming. But taking an incremental, attainable approach to it would be helpful, and I think that looks different for everybody.
Sure. Yeah, it's not always going to look the same, but by hitting singles, so to speak, there's a regularity of you don't score in baseball if you don't hit a bunch of singles most of the time. I mean, obviously there are home runs and they're great when they happen, but most of the scoring in baseball comes from singles. It comes from people just getting on base and station to station, right?
That's right. That's right.
Good word. Well, Charles, my friend, congratulations on a forthcoming baby. Excited about that for you and your wife. Thank you for your time today, and I appreciate you being a part of the SRS network and just leaning into this whole topic of really not just raising your support, but maintaining it well because of relationship, because of partnership in the gospel with our team. So God bless you, my friend, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Aaron. God bless you as well.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for this episode. We would love to hear your ideas for future content. Please visit supportraisengsolutions.org/feedback to share your thoughts and questions. Also, wherever you download your podcasts from, be sure to subscribe for future episodes and come back each week to gain more insight into the process of building and maintaining your personal support team.